Good morning, viewers. Hello and welcome to the Morning News Show, where we bring you the latest headlines and insightful stories to kickstart your day. I'm Koina Sharma and you are watching CNN News 18. First up, on top of this bulletin, we're tracking the escalating conflict in Gaza. Now, with Israel's offensive ramping up and the elimination of Hamas Chief, we'll unpack the implications of this pivotal moment and the significant updates on this. Now, stay with us for expert analysis and latest. Let's begin. Now, Israel's offensive continues in Gaza as the Israeli Defense Forces have now eliminated Hamas Chief Yahya Sinwar. Now, Hamas Chief Yahya Sinwar was the mastermind behind the 7th October attacks against Israel, which resulted in the deaths of 1,200 Israelis. Now, after the elimination of the Hamas leader, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a strong message to the world and openly declared that IDF has killed Sinwar. Now, he further said, and I quote, "Hamas Chief Sinwar ruined the lives of the people of Gaza, and now Hamas leaders are running away and will be killed." Now, the Israeli PM has also sent a clear warning to those holding Israeli hostages, urging them to lay down their arms and release the captives, with the promise that their lives would be spared if they do so. Now, US President Joe Biden has also reacted to Israel eliminating Sinwar. In a statement, he said, and I quote, "This is a good day for Israel, for the United States, and for the rest of the world."
Yahya Sinwar is dead. He was killed in Rafah by the brave soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces. While this is not the end of the war in Gaza, it's the beginning of the end. To the people of Gaza, I have a simple message. This war can end tomorrow. It can end if Hamas lays down its arms and returns our hostages. Hamas is holding 101 hostages in Gaza, who are citizens of 23 countries, citizens of Israel, but citizens of many other countries. Israel is committed to doing everything in our power to bring all of them home. And Israel will guarantee the safety of all those who return our hostages. But to those who would harm our hostages, I have another message. Israel will hunt you down and bring you to justice.
Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas terrorist organization, who was responsible for the October 7th massacre, is dead. For the past year, Sinwar tried to escape justice. He failed. We said we would find him and bring him to justice, and we did it. It was Yahya Sinwar who decided to wage war with Israel while hiding behind civilians in Gaza. Since the beginning of this war that Sinwar started on October 7th, we've said our war is with Hamas, not with the people of Gaza. Our work is not done. We will not rest until we bring home all our hostages by any means. And we will continue to operate until we complete all our missions in defense of the people of Israel.
Feared and fettered at home in Gaza, universally reviled by Israelis, Yahya Sinwar became the Jewish state's enemy number one for his leading role in Hamas's brutal October 7th slaughter of almost 1,200 people in Israel, triggering Israel's killing of tens of thousands of Palestinians. The IDF dubbed him a dead man walking, but university-educated Sinwar persistently outsmarted his enemies.
When I was talking to him, he always insisted that we speak Hebrew and not Arabic.
Israeli journalist Ehud Yari interviewed Sinwar 4 times during the terror leader's 22 years in Israeli jail. Yari saw Sinwar's rise to prison leader, but learnt no secrets.
He's charismatic, he's shrewd, he's very cunning.
Palestinian Esmat Mansour spent years in jail with the man who would become Hamas's Gaza leader.
He constantly follows the security changes and developments in the Israeli security structure.
Sinwar's entry to Hamas was through internal security, convicted of playing a role in the killing of 2 Israelis and 4 suspect Palestinian informants.
He's also a cruel person. Not violent, but he's capable of cruelty, but within careful political calculations.
Born in a Gaza refugee camp to parents who'd fled their home in what is now Israel in 1948, following the Jewish state's creation. His cause was to reverse his people's expulsion from their land. By the time of his release in 2011, Sinwar had spent 22 years in jail. His freedom was a seminal moment, traded with more than 1,000 other Palestinian prisoners for just one IDF soldier, Gilad Shalit, snatched 5 years earlier. It was an object lesson for Sinwar, but he had emerged to a changed reality. Gaza, now cut off from the world by Israel's blockade. Rising to become Hamas's overall leader in Gaza, he worked to reverse those setbacks.
Harming Al-Aqsa or Jerusalem means a religious war, and we will not hold back. We, as Palestinians, as well as Arabs and Muslims, are fully prepared and will not hesitate to defend our rights.
It was an uneven fight, Israel always with the upper hand. He counted on Iran to help.
Iran has supported us with finance, arms and expertise.
Yet he indicated his stance on Israel could be softening. In 2018, telling an Italian journalist he saw, quote, an opportunity for change and, quote, a new war is in no one's interests. He stepped up diplomacy with Egypt and Qatar, his interlocutors to Israel, making sure his cause had a broad Arab alliance.
I say to the leaders of Arab and Islamic countries, there has to be a strategic change in your path. It is ending normalization, closing the embassies, and supporting the resistance.
During fighting in 2021, the IDF bombed his house. A week later, at a rare press conference, he goaded the IDF to take a second shot, saying he would walk home. He didn't hide, and neither did his fighters ahead of their October 7th attack. Their training in plain sight, like Sinwar's comments, misread by the IDF, opening the door to a war that has become his legacy. Israel's response resulted in the unparalleled killing of tens of thousands of Palestinians and the destruction of Gaza. Internationally, it raised a previously unseen potent pro-Palestinian lobby. If that was Sinwar's strategy, it was succeeding, but at great cost. Ultimately, he will be judged in Gaza. Does anger at the destruction Hamas triggered fade faster than the hatred at Israel for doing it?
Netanyahu, Mr. Gandler, also made the statement that he has appealed to the residents of Gaza to rise up against Hamas. At the same time, he has said that Yahya Sinwar and other Hamas leaders have made their lives hell in the Gaza Strip. He's also said that the IDF will not harm those residents of Gaza who let go of the hostages. Do you feel that there is an uprising within Gaza against the Hamas leadership?
I think it's an opportunity, the same way it is an opportunity in Lebanon to rid themselves of Hezbollah. It is an opportunity for the people of Gaza to rid themselves of Hamas, this tyrannical terrorist organization that was headed, I'm happy to say was headed by Yahya Sinwar, is now an opportunity for the people of Gaza to say enough is enough. We want to leave our lives in peace, return to a situation that is not a war, pre-October 7th. I think that is, or that will be something that will be good for all sides, both to Israel and to the residents of Gaza.
Right, and what are the reactions coming in from the people of Israel, Mr. Gandler, given the fact that this man was one of the key masterminds of the deadly October 7th attack, something that has shaken the conscience of the entire globe?
Many religious people don't watch TV or don't go around with their cell phones. They don't use electricity. So people were walking the streets informing people that don't use electricity that Yahya Sinwar was killed. It's a hard thing to say that we rejoice, because there is place for rejoicement by killing such an arch-terrorist, someone who has hunted Israelis for the last 40 years. But we think this is another step for peace, to end the war, to end the suffering of Israelis and Palestinians. To end this destabilizing of this entire region, not only in Israel, not only with the Palestinians, but also around the world and around many parts of the Middle East. So the death of Yahya Sinwar, this terrorist, is a day of joy for many Israelis. I can tell you that images that came from the beaches of Israel where lifeguards announced that he was dead and people rejoiced. So it's a day of great optimism towards where this could lead. Hopefully they did, but if they didn't, then we know that we can always teach them that lesson. Iran is a malignant force. It is the basis of all the destabilization here around the region. Iran is the mother and father of Hezbollah, of Hamas, of the Houthis, of Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq, Hezbollah in Syria, and every malignant force that is destabilizing the region, not just for us. We are the obvious target, but for every other person in this region, whether he be Israeli, Jordanian, Lebanese, or a resident of the Palestinian territories. Iran is, I'll use their terminology, they're the big Satan. So Iran needs to learn a lesson not to destabilize the region.
Feared and fettered at home in Gaza. Universally reviled by Israelis, Yahya Sinwar became the Jewish state's enemy number one. For his leading role in Hamas's brutal October 7th slaughter of almost 1,200 people in Israel, triggering Israel's killing of tens of thousands of Palestinians. The IDF dubbed him a dead man walking, but university-educated Sinwar persistently outsmarted his enemies.
When I was talking to him, he always insisted that we speak Hebrew and not Arabic.
Israeli journalist Ehud Yari interviewed Sinwar 4 times during the terror leader's 22 years in Israeli jail. Yari saw Sinwar's rise to prison leader, but learnt no secrets.
He's charismatic, he's shrewd, he's very cunning.
Palestinian Esmat Mansour spent years in jail with the man who would become Hamas's Gaza leader.
He constantly follows the security changes and developments in the Israeli security structure.
Sinwar's entry to Hamas was through internal security, convicted of playing a role in the killing of 2 Israelis and 4 suspect Palestinian informants.
He's also a cruel person. Not violent, but he's capable of cruelty, but within careful political calculations.
Born in a Gaza refugee camp to parents who'd fled their home in what is now Israel in 1948, following the Jewish state's creation. His cause was to reverse his people's expulsion from their land. By the time of his release in 2011, Sinwar had spent 22 years in jail. His freedom was a seminal moment, traded with more than 1,000 other Palestinian prisoners for just one IDF soldier, Gilad Shalit, snatched 5 years earlier. It was an object lesson for Sinwar. But he had emerged to a changed reality. Gaza, now cut off from the world by Israel's blockade. Rising to become Hamas's overall leader in Gaza, he worked to reverse those setbacks.
Well, this breaking input is also relevant to the ongoing tensions. Now, footage from an IDF drone in which Yahya Sinwar is seen moments before his elimination has been recovered. Now, Israel's offensive in Gaza continues to escalate as the Israeli Defense Forces eliminate Hamas Chief Yahya Sinwar. Now, drone footage that captures the moments leading up to his elimination has now been recovered. Let's take a look at that first, and we'll also examine the broader impact on regional stability and what this actually means for the civilians caught in the entire crossfire. Now, joining us on the broadcast is our colleague Akanksha. Very good morning, Akanksha. Elimination of Hamas chief. Is this an opportunity for people of Gaza to get rid of Hamas and say enough is enough?
A very good morning to you, Kuhina, and our viewers. Of course, there is bound to be a leadership vacuum. Now, when you look at the killing of Yahya Sinwar, he was a central figure, the Gaza head of Hamas. And this is bound to also lead to an internal disarray, and the entire organizational structure is bound to be extremely weakened. He was a massive military strategist, as we've been playing out those extensive reports on CNN News 18 that indicate the kind of mastermind that he was: ruthless, manipulative, and very calculated. So to get somebody to replace the kind of military strategist that Yahya Sinwar was will be a massive challenge. And as of now, what sources are telling CNN News 18, Israel is very sure of the fact that this is perhaps the end of Hamas as far as Gaza is concerned. Not to forget the fact that now Hamas will only be reduced to maintaining shadow control in Gaza. They may use the killing of Yahya Sinwar to hire more people, but will, in fact, is Hamas in a position to carry on with recruitment, which is, of course, also going to falter due to high casualties. There's already a manpower shortage because of the ongoing war in Gaza. But having said that, this has certainly placed the Israeli military on a front footing, and is going to be a huge morale boost for the ongoing military operation in Lebanon, where they are now targeting to completely destroy and annihilate Hezbollah, and in the process also give a befitting response to Iran.
Right, Akanksha. Now, joining us on the broadcast is our another colleague, Siddhant. A very good morning, Siddhant. Elimination of Hamas chief, who's roughly haunted Israelis for, on an average, 4 decades. Now, how do you see this development shaping Israel's strategy moving forward, especially in the high conflict zone of Middle East?
Well, it's a clear victory for Israel, and perhaps 3 big victories in 3 months. It started with the killing of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, then Hassan Nasrallah in Lebanon, and now Yahya Sinwar. Yes. Now, after the death of Ismail Haniyeh, Yahya Sinwar was also made the head of the political bureau of Hamas. Perhaps a commander on ground, Yahya Sinwar, was released by Israel in 2011, and since then he was active in regrouping Hamas for the big attack on Israel. Yahya Sinwar is perhaps the military commander of Hamas, and he is always seen as somebody who has his boots on ground in Gaza. On the other end, Ismail Haniyeh was somebody who was seen as a diplomatic figure, who used to live in Qatar and used to mediate and talk with the other stakeholders in the Middle East on behalf of Hamas. Now, since Yahya Sinwar is dead, and in fact there's a video footage that has been released by Israel, it looks like that half of the work has been done by Israel. The targets, the goals that they had after the 7th October attack, half of the goals have been fulfilled, and perhaps the political stocks of Netanyahu are all-time high, because he's being seen as a risk taker. He's being seen as somebody who promised for the elimination of all these three leaders. And look, within a year's time, Israeli forces have eliminated all the top three enemies of Israel. So perhaps it's going to help Netanyahu in his domestic politics also. But yes, now the bigger challenge, and perhaps the only challenge left for Israel, is to get the hostages back. Because, in fact, we have been speaking to the officials in Tel Aviv, and, they say that about more than 100 hostages are still in Hamas's captivity. So despite the ground invasion, air invasion, both in Gaza, Lebanon, Israel is unable perhaps to come to a point where Israel could put pressure on Hamas to surrender the hostages, and that has become a very, very tricky thing for Israel to do. So now the next goalpost is going to be the release of the hostages, and perhaps that is where the
request you to stay with us on the broadcast. I sincerely apologize to interrupt in between. We are getting another breaking input now. Another footage has surfaced which shows removal of Yahya Sinwar's dead body moments after his elimination. These are latest inputs that we are tracking at this point of time, which is also relevant to the ongoing conflict in Middle East. Now, footage has emerged showing the removal of Yahya Sinwar's body moments after his elimination. Now, this also marks a significant moment in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, and the footage actually that is being shown on your TV screens highlights the intensity of the conflict and the high stakes that are involved for both the sides. So these are the latest inputs that we're tracking from the ground. Siddhant continues to stay with us on the broadcast. Siddhant, help us understand, what does this footage reveal about the methods and the operations of the IDF?
Well, IDF, whenever they do operations, it's in the most professional manner, and even if they are sure about the elimination of some terrorists, then they do their due diligence before announcing it. In fact, yesterday also, since late in the evening, this news was going around in the Israeli media space, American media space, that Yahya Sinwar has been eliminated. But Israel did take a time to match the DNA sample of Yahya Sinwar, perhaps the other protocols that they follow at the time of due diligence, and after which IDF comes out with a tweet confirming the elimination of Yahya Sinwar. So this is perhaps a big achievement for the Israeli forces, and in fact they did come out with a statement also saying that the IDF soldiers from the southern command eliminated Yahya Sinwar, the leader of the Hamas terrorist organization. And Yahya Sinwar was eliminated after hiding for the past years behind the civilian population of Gaza. So that has been mentioned in the statement. The dozens of operations carried out by the IDF and ISA over the last year in the recent where he was eliminated. So this is an official confirmation that IDF has made. And in fact, there is a very interesting drone footage which IDF has released, where drone could be seen reaching the balcony of the building where Yahya Sinwar is sitting on a sofa, fully injured. And the time he looks at the drone on the balcony, he immediately reacts, and there's a hand movement of Yahya Sinwar which has been captured in that drone footage, and he throws the stick which he's holding in his hand at the drone to sort of in a way reacting to the drone on his balcony. So that's the footage that the Israelis have released ahead of the elimination of Yahya Sinwar.
Right, Siddhant, this is a huge development, and this moment not only impacts the tactical landscape but also raises questions about the future direction of Hamas and Israel's response. So how might this impact the public perception on both the sides of the conflict?
Well, look, I think this particular development perhaps will put pressure on Hamas to surrender the hostages, but also will put pressure on Israel to end the war, because you see, President Biden is not involved in political activities anymore. So what he's working on right now is perhaps to leave a strong legacy, and when we say strong legacy, then it means that during his tenure, the two wars conflict got started. So he would perhaps prove a point by ending at least one of the conflicts going on, and that one conflict could be the conflict going on in the Middle East. So there have been efforts made by American side through Qatar and the other stakeholders in the Middle East to put pressure on Israel to end the war. Now, we could say that 60-70% of work is already done. The top commanders of Hezbollah and Hamas have been eliminated, and the immediate threat to Israel is always Hamas and Hezbollah, because Houthis sit at a distance from Israel. So the senior leadership have been finished. Their entire network have been finished. It's by Israel, and within just 3 months this has been done by Israel. So there's also pressure on Israel to stop war now. Now, how it's going to happen? How Americans will try to bring stakeholders on one table and perhaps to convince them so that this war can end in Israel is something which time will tell. But right now, it looks like there would be pressure on Israel to end the war now. But now, what I have been hearing from the officials in Israel is that since yesterday, they all are saying in one voice that the target is to get the hostages released. And till then, Israel will not stop. So that's the official line which their diplomats, their politicians are taking after the elimination of Yahya Sinwar, because they also understand that since 3 of the top 3 enemies have been killed, the pressure would come from US and the other stakeholders to end war. And this is the reason that they have decided the next goalpost and perhaps giving more emphasis now on the hostage release. Back to you.
Right, Siddhant, like you rightly pointed out, the bigger challenge now lies in securing the release of hostages, a critical issue that complicates the entire situation further. Now, as military operations continue in the Middle East, the clock is ticking for families waiting for their loved ones to come home. We'll continue to track all the latest updates on this, but now it's time to slip into a very short break. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.